Okay, there's a new list now that's come out on the latest updates to the EU list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. The European finance minister, and this came out from KPMG, and you need to know this because if you're thinking about setting up an offshore corporation, or you're trying to maybe go into a brokerage company that's in Switzerland, Singapore, you need to make note of this because it can be a lot harder to get the bank account set up or the brokerage account set up. And also something else you need to know, and the reason you need to keep up with this is because it changes constantly. You have some of these countries get thrown on a gray list, then they're thrown on a blacklist, they come off the blacklist, and then the OECD throws them back on another blacklist again. It's almost like these guys are, it's like these guys become like slaves, and the OECD tells them what to do, and they do it, and then they come off this this blacklist, and they come back, totally off, or either on a gray list. Usually they'll go off the blacklist totally, and kind of like the gray list is kind of like a waiting point to see if the country's going to comply. If they don't comply, then they throw them this blacklist. But there are countries, which I'm going to go over with you, like Belize, that's done everything they told them, okay? They ended up changing all their tax laws on their offshore corporations. And what happened was now Belize, you have to file a tax return if you got an offshore company. And now holding companies don't have to pay taxes right now, but they do have to have, I'm talking about as far as Belize goes. And if you're a U.S. citizen, you're from a country that taxes worldwide income. If you live there, a high tax country like Austria, Canada, Australia, then you're still reported. You're still obligated to report that money. Now, I'm telling you, when I say no reporting requirements, I'm assuming that you're not with a country that taxes worldwide income, that you've broken away those tax ties, or you have relinquished your U.S. citizenship. Because even if you leave the U.S. and you set up one of these companies I'm talking about, you're still obligated to report this, okay? If you don't, you can have criminal charges against you, okay? So you need to make note of that. So when I give you tax laws, I'm talking about here dealing with the country that's the blacklisted country, their tax laws right there, okay? Anything outside of that, you have to look at your own individual situation and then determine if you owe taxes from there, okay? So that being said, now the European finance ministers agreed to add 3 new jurisdictions to the list, as well as to remove 3 jurisdictions from the list. Now, on 17th of October 2023, the European Council, they published the updated EU list of non-cooperative jurisdictions for tax purposes known as the EU blacklist. Now, recent updates I'm going to talk to you about today, and then I'm going to tell you the ones that are on the list. I don't have time to tell you the ones that are not compliant, okay? And so they basically said, we're just not going to comply. And, some of them will come off of it. Some of them are standing their grounds, okay? So if you want to see the ones that are not compliant, there are advantages and there are disadvantages going through them. One advantage is, there's one I'm going to give you. It's the only one that I've seen so far. Actually, there's another one on there that they're not, there's no filing requirements at all. The OECD wants them to file tax returns or make the people that buy the corporations that are offshore corporations to file tax returns, but they're not complying with it, okay? So, these are countries that are standing up their ground. Their advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is there's a lot of privacy there. But number 2 is if you have a corporation that's offshore in one of these jurisdictions, what's going to happen is you can. I would not use it if you're going to be setting up a brokerage company in Switzerland. If you're going to be doing it in Singapore, any place in Europe, because if they're not doing it now, they're going to eventually make you cancel the brokerage account. Okay, I'm already seeing it happen. Okay, almost everybody's had it happen if you're international. Okay, and you're using one of these jurisdictions. that have these blacklisted corporations. So they're from the blacklisted countries. There are ways around it, legal ways around it. I don't have time to go through it right now. You can set up there are plenty of countries that are still taking the bank accounts from these countries. Now, again, I would not use this for brokerage company, any place in Europe, Switzerland, Singapore. If you're using it for a company where you're just only having cash coming in like a commercial account, okay, then you can use these type jurisdictions, okay, and then what you can do is then you can actually do transfers to yourself within that bank. Most brokerage companies will not let you do internal transfers though, to different parties, but there are banks that will do it. Brokerage companies won't, but a lot of banks will still do it. But how long that's going to last, I don't know. And then you can wire out from your personal cell to a place over in wherever you want to go. Now, let me just tell you who these countries are. Okay, but again, don't do this with brokerage companies or brokerage accounts. You need to do it strictly with yourself. If you're going to be doing this, do it with a company account, and do it in jurisdictions that are outside of Switzerland and Singapore and other places in the world that have really become real strict on this, like Australia, places that are like New Zealand. Okay, here are the jurisdictions. This just came out, by the way, too. This was in October when they made this change, so this is pretty recent. Now, one jurisdiction, Antigua and Barbuda, was placed on the blacklist. Now, if you're thinking about getting citizenship in Antigua and Barbuda, this can have an effect on you. Let me tell you why. If you get a citizenship there, if you move there, okay, and you're living there, and let's say that you're a U.S. citizen and you've decided to give up your U.S. citizenship, or let's say that you decided you didn't want to relinquish. You just wanted to move and have a business overseas, participate in the foreign overseas exclusion. Once your brokerage accounts find out that you're living in a country that's blacklisted, they can very easily cancel your accounts, okay? Schwab's doing it. Ameritrade is doing it. Lots of these brokerage companies are doing it, okay? If you're not living there and you're just getting the passport, then that's different, okay? But if you move to Panama, Panama's on this list, okay? So there's a lot of these. This is why you got to be looking at this list, and you got to look at it constantly. If you don't, you can waste a lot of time, man. It causes you a lot of headaches. So you need to be watching this blacklist, or watching our channel, and we keep you up to date with it. All right, now, again, Antigua and Barbuda was placed on the blacklist. If you move there, you can have a lot of your brokerage accounts canceled. And also Antigua and Barbuda, if they're not actually, if they don't come off this blacklist, the OECD countries also make up a lot of the Schengen countries that can come in and say, hey, you just lost visa-free travel to our country. That's how they control them, okay? Another thing they can do is they can say, hey, Antigua and Barbuda, one of the biggest industries, tourism, we have just cut it off all flights to Antigua and Barbuda, so now their tourist business has gone down the tubes. So what are these countries more likely going to do? They're going to basically say, oh, master, what do you want? We'll do it. This is what happens in most cases. And so what ends up happening is they'll actually do enough to get off the blacklist, okay? Then what happens, I've seen this for years, probably 15 years I've seen it. Belize is an example. I'll give you a minute how it works. They'll come off the blacklist, then the OECD comes back and they say, hey, now we want you to do this, this, and this. What happens is they gradually start breaking their arm till it snaps, and then they do everything it takes to get off that blacklist. The problem is once they get off of it, the OECD countries have seen, hey, this thing works. Now let's get them to do this, this, and this, okay? And they throw them right back on the blacklist again. I've seen it's like a merry-go-round. They've been doing this for years. But they did this to St. Kitts. Now, St. Kitts and Nevis is not on the blacklist now. But I've seen them on it before where they ended up coming in compliant and they took them off of it. But now two jurisdictions, Belize and Seychelles, were moved from the gray list to the blacklist. And British Virgin Islands, Costa Rica were moved from the blacklist to the gray list. The Marshall Islands, previously blacklisted, as well as Jordan, Montserrat, Qatar, and Thailand, previously gray listed, were completely removed. Okay, let me tell you what Marshall Islands did. They caved in on their privacy, on their offshore corporations, and also on their compliance. And now Marshall Islands has all kinds of filing requirements on their offshore corporations. They used to didn't have this. Okay, now they're caving in. Okay, Belize, another good example. If you look at my other videos I had on Belize, originally you didn't have to file anything at all. Those corporations, all you had to do is pay a small fee per year. There was nothing to file. Guess what happened? Belize got thrown to the blacklist. Now, Belize did the stuff they asked them to do, and then they came off the blacklist. Now they're throwing them back on again. And what did they do? They basically made all these corporations now file tax returns. You didn't have to do that. All kinds of stuff. Man, there's all kinds of forms you got to file if you set up a Belize offshore corporation now. Okay, and they're going after now the LLCs. Okay, just like the IBCs. There's some changes coming up on that if they hadn't already done it. I hadn't seen them come up yet, but they're going to. The LLCs were having exemption, but now they're putting pressure on those type of companies now. What's happened is every time they come off of it, the OECD comes back and says, we're going to twist it again till it snaps, and then you're going to comply. And that's exactly what happens. They comply, they get off of it. And then, what other choice have they got? Because they'll cut them off, all these countries, visa-free travel. Now, Belize is not going to have that happen because Belize doesn't have visa-free travel to the Schengen countries anyway, which make up most of the OECD countries. But they can do other stuff. I mean, they do have a lot of tourism that comes into Belize. That's their number one business is tourism in Belize, or either number two. It's real big. So that's how they basically break the arm of Belize until they fold. Now, the following, this is a revision. This is the latest revision. The blacklist now includes 16 jurisdictions. Now, these are countries where if you get their corporations, there are several problems that they're having with the OECD. Some of them are not going to have exchange of information. Some haven't done all the qualifications. It just depends on the country. And I don't have time today. I'm going to do that on a separate video. I'm going to explain what these countries won't give in on. Okay, so you can kind of study to see, do you want to go with that country, because some of these countries are not exchanging any information. Okay. So, and I'll tell you those on another video. All right, now it will be the next video. Okay, now following the latest version, the blacklist now includes 16 jurisdictions: America, Samoa, that's an American overseas territory, isn't that something? Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, the Bahamas, Belize. Belize got thrown back on it again. Okay, after they complied with everything. Fiji's another one. Guam, Palau, Panama, Russian Federation, Samoa. Seychelles, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Vanuatu. Now, let me make one comment, and there are other ones too. Samoa has, I'm not talking about American Samoa, but Samoa is the only one, other than I think Palau is another one, that will not exchange any information. They have from day one, they just will not comply. Okay, they're not turning over anything. Okay, they're saying they're basically just taking the whipping, okay, and they're willing to take it. Now, how long they can last, I don't know, okay, but right now they're not turning over any information. There's no filing requirements. In fact, they're the only two I know of that don't have absolutely any filing requirements. Belize has got all kinds of filing requirements, and they still threw them back on the blacklist, okay. So these are ones that are basically taking every beat that's being thrown their way, and they're just basically stating, we ain't going to do crap. Now, let's see how long they last. Now, again, there are 14 jurisdictions that are gray listed. The ones I just told you were blacklisted. Albania, Armenia, these are the ones that are gray listed. Aruba, Botswana, British Virgin Islands, Costa Rica, Curacao, Dominica, Eswatini. You got Hong Kong, Israel, Malaysia, Turkey, and Vietnam. Now, the EU will continue to monitor the tax compliance progress and implement measures against tax evasion in these jurisdictions. The thing is, these countries, it's not that they're aiding with tax evasion. It's just they've got good tax laws, okay, that the OECD doesn't like, okay? I mean, there's people in their own country that are tax evading. They don't have to be outside the OECD to tax evade. There's people already in their country that are tax evading that don't even use these corporations. But they don't like their tax laws because there are some people that are basically finding ways legally, okay, not to pay taxes by going to these jurisdictions. Now, I can't tell you the tax laws in every country and why they're doing it, but like I said before, they're not doing it because of drug trafficking, money laundering. I'm giving it to you right here, right off their website. It's tax evasion, okay? And it's not really tax evasion. They're setting up because, for instance, there's people that don't live in these countries that tax worldwide income, like Australia, Canada, places in Europe that have high tax if you live there on worldwide income. There are people that have moved out, detaxed themselves, that aren't U.S. citizens, that relinquish their U.S. citizenship. They're being affected by this because here are people that legally don't have to pay any income tax because they're living, let's say, in a territorial tax system or they're in a pure tax haven, but they got to go through all this crap of all this filing crap, okay? And now some of these countries are coming out with taxes. So even if you're in a pure tax haven country or a territorial tax system, if you set up one of these corporations and they've changed their tax laws like Belize has, Belize now is making you pay taxes on their offshore corporations. They don't care if you're from a tax haven or have a territorial tax system. It doesn't make any difference. They're saying they're going to tax you the same as anybody else, okay? Now, the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that this is what hurts people who, these are places you're going to have to stay away from, okay? Because if you want to get your taxes down low and you've gotten out of places that are high tax, whether it's the U.S. relinquishing or giving up your residency in these high tax countries based on worldwide income because you're living there too long, then my suggestion is you're going to have to pick a country that is not complying with this, or either you're going to have to do it based on you and not the corporation. Because if you're living in a place like, let's say, Panama doesn't tax worldwide income, okay? It taxes income only on income that's inside the country. So maybe in some cases it's better off not to set up an offshore corporation, or either pick an offshore corporation from jurisdictions like Palau, places like Samoa. These are some advantages of going there, okay? Now, you will have pressure that's put on you, like I said, from these other jurisdictions, so you got to be wary of that. I'm telling you the pluses and the minuses. But anyway, if you want to know more on this and you want to listen to the next video, I'm going to go through the countries and the problems they're having with that country and what they're trying to get them to do. And this is where you can learn stuff, and this is what you need to keep up with, because if you go international, you don't know what you're doing on this, man. You're going to waste all kinds of time. I've wasted so much time learning this stuff. I'm going to tell you, and I learned the hard way. And I've had clients that learned the hard way. My phone ringing off the hook. What do I do? You know, this is the type of, and I'm trying to tell you ahead of time how to solve these problems. If you're setting up an international company, whether you're living in these jurisdictions that are high tax or not, you need to know the tax laws. If you're in these places, you're required to pay taxes. You need to pay the taxes, okay? Don't scoot them. If you want to get around high taxes, do what's required by law. You might have to pay an exit tax. If you're from Canada or other countries, you might have to pay that exit tax and get out. If you're a U.S. citizen, to get around all of it, all taxes, you're going to have to relinquish your U.S. citizenship. You can mitigate it, okay, by being outside the U.S. long enough to qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion. That's another way you can do it. But with no limits, being a U.S. citizen, unlimited taxation that you want to get around, you're going to have to relinquish. That's the only way you can do it. If you want to know more on this, go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com. If you want to legally get around high income taxes or how to get a second passport as quick as 4 to 8 months. And I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below. And don't forget, hit the subscribe button, the right of your screen right here. You'll get new videos automatically as they come out. And don't forget to listen to our next video, and I'll explain to you more how these countries work on their offshore corporations. And I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.